Here we go. Welcome to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, a longtime radio sports personality. Today's show is going to be really fun because we have another Bruce in the house.
Yeah, we got Bruce Jenkins, who is a longtime San Francisco Chronicle reporter who really covers the NBA very closely and is keeping a close watch, of course, on all of the playoff doings, so we'll talk about that.
Okay, excellent. At each commercial break, we're going to be asking a sports trivia question where we're giving away vacations to the first 3 emails with the correct answer. And the vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina. The vacations are free. Their only request, a $75 cleaning fee to cover those housekeeping expenses. Check them out at lighthouseresortandmarina.com. Today's trivia theme is baseball in the 2000s. So rather than, going back to the 1880s that I like, we're going to get a little bit more up to date on this.
Cap Anson's not up your alley.
No, not a good guy.
Yeah. He wasn't a good guy, by the way.
No, good baseball player.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he didn't do what he did?
I know. We could get into a long dissertation on that, but for those that don't know, Cap Anson was a great player, but he was also a vicious racist who basically turned the clock back on African-American involvement in baseball by saying, I'm not going to allow my team to play if there's a black player on the field, and as a result, baseball gave in, and it wasn't for another 40 or 50 years that Jackie Robinson did get a chance, finally got a chance.
Otherwise, you would have Cool Papa Bell.
Oh, yeah, Oscar Charleston, and, Josh Gibson.
Josh Gibson, that's the guy.
Yeah.
See, they call him the Black Babe Ruth.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Okay, and this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are currently yielding about 8.25%. Secured by real estate. It doesn't get any more conservative than that. You can check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. When we come back, we're going to introduce Bruce Jenkins, a sports columnist. I'm going to let Bruce McGowan do most of the talking because, as you can tell, I'm kind of losing my voice here. Too much yelling and screaming at the Warrior game.
Too much. You gotta watch your behavior there. You really do.
Actually, wasn't that
being your age, come on.
That's it. Okay.
You got to do what Monty Williams tells you to do. We'll talk to Bruce about that.
Okay.
It's kind of a fun story.
Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Oh, man.
Borrow one of your pens.
Oh, yeah. Is that one that works?
Yeah, it's out of the account. There we go. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for your patience, Bruce.
All right.
Let's just,
get going here.
Yeah, let me save this file here. When I come back, I'll just turn it right over to you. So this will air on the 25th. And Bruce, when I went online, I just saw just a stock photo of you. If that's okay, I'll use that as the photo.
Yeah, because this show, Bruce, actually is heard also on iHeartRadio, which you can get on your internet. And it's sort of, I guess all the shows are archived, so you can listen to any of them.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, it's not going to air till the 25th?
Yeah, so probably we'll be talking about a game. Well, we won't mention the game on Thursday because obviously, that will have taken place, but we won't know anything about it. But the Warriors, regardless, are going to be up 2-1 or 3-0. So we can talk a little bit about the matchup and that sort of thing. Hopefully, there's not going to be any major injuries in the interim.
Okay, you guys ready? All right.
Can you hear us, okay, Bruce? I don't hear Bruce.
Bruce, you are there?
Yeah, I hear
Okay.
I
Hold on.
Do you hear him?
Yeah,
I mean, I hear him over there.
Okay, yeah, I had a little mic trouble here. Go ahead, talk again.
Yeah, can you hear me now? How's that sound?
Okay.
Yeah, almost there.
Almost there. Try one more time.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, it's
You got a little short in your mic there.
It's crazy. Okay, don't worry, I'll fix it while you're on.
Okay.
Okay,
here we go. I think you got. You hear us that now, Bruce?
What's that?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah,
okay.
no
You just
problem.
have to be careful not to bang on this.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Bruce, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yeah, we got Bruce Jenkins on the line. Bruce is a terrific sports writer who has been working with the San Francisco Chronicle for, I believe it's been about 30 years, hasn't it, Bruce?
42.
Oh my gosh! And you're making me feel young, which is a rare thing to be able to do. But you've been covering the NBA for a long time, and I got to ask you. Right now, your attention is focused on this Warrior team, which has been really a great story. As we speak, they are leading in their series over the team from New Orleans, the young Pelicans. But both the first 2 games in Oakland were really hard-fought games. Were you surprised that the Pelicans put on as good a show as they did in both those games?
A little bit. Warriors, one, they had a huge lead, and it seemed like it would be like this the rest of their home games where they just put teams away and there really aren't any comebacks, and the fourth quarter is a real freeze, and everybody's having fun. And New Orleans did come back, and then game two was highly contestable. It was really in doubt right to the end, but it's just in the playoffs, things tighten up a little bit. I think it's just there's a little more tension, a little more suspense to it. The teams play stiffer defense than maybe you've seen them play down the stretch in the regular season. So I'm not totally surprised. And of course, New Orleans has Anthony Davis, who's really one of the great young talents to come along ever, as far as I can see, and he makes a big difference. He can be unstoppable at times.
Yeah, when he was driving to the hoop, it just seemed like he was either going to get fouled or he was going to make the shot. It was only when he backed off that they had a chance.
No, he's fun to watch. I just love his wingspan. He looks like one of these young people who's going to grow even more into his body. I mean, he's 6'10", about 220 pounds right now, but he just moves so gracefully. He's still a little bit of a work in progress. Got to ask you though about the Warriors in the matchup with this terrific backcourt of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. A lot of fun to watch these guys. And the unfortunate thing for the opposing team, though, it seems that even if you put the clamps on both of these guys, they've got a pretty good group of guys coming off that bench, as we saw in Game 2. That bench, people like Andre Iguodala and Barbosa, they just sort of energized this team. This reminds me a lot, Bruce, of the Warrior team of many, many years ago that was coached by Al Attles, that used its bench and wore teams down with their depth.
Yeah, that's really true. In fact, I mentioned that in the column I wrote off of Game 2. For those of us who go back that far, the memory is called up pretty easily. And in 1975, Al Attles used 10 or even 11 guys in close games. It wasn't just a garbage time. I mean, he really used 10 or 11 guys up in a 12-man team. And we're seeing that again now. In the second quarter of Game 2, the Warriors had already used 10 guys. And, they were trailing, and there was a little bit of desperation, and they were going to their bench at a crucial time of the game. So it's pretty refreshing. The tradition in the NBA then and now is to trim down your rotation to maybe 7 or 8 guys. But in the case of Kerr and Attles back then, they're really deep, and they have no intention of shortening their rotation because they have so many guys who can contribute.
Yeah, relating to that, it's interesting, and Bruce was talking about the 1975 NBA champion Warriors, who were a long shot to even go to the playoffs. And they had one superstar in Rick Barry and a rookie of the year in Jamal Wilkes. They actually had a pretty good team, but on paper at the beginning of the season, it didn't look that way. And it was interesting. Rick was sitting next to me at dinner last night, and I asked him to talk about that, comparison, and he said, it's kind of startling. He said, looking at the rosters, they reminded him a lot the way they played defense, the way they went after people, the way they were able to get their break going. I mean, that's kind of a neat thing. It's almost a throwback kind of a team.
Yeah, I think in both cases the defense they played was underrated. That 75 team, with Ray really setting the tone. Bill Bridges, a rugged power forward. Bill Smith was a very tough defender, the late Bill Smith. Great player. He was a rookie as well as Keith Wilkes that year. And they played tremendous defense, which is always a crucial factor in the playoffs, usually the deciding factor. And now this team, all year they've been great statistically. You look at all the analytics, and it shows up quite clearly that they're perhaps the best team in the league. But, people always talk about Curry and Thompson, the Splash Brothers, and all the offense. And it's the two-way thing that makes them truly a team to beat.
Well, it's amazing. You expect every time they shoot a three-pointer, it's going to go in. But I'd sure love to see a lot more offensive rebounds because it seems like guys, as soon as they shoot it, they're just running back down to the court.
That's a drawback from the style they play on occasion. I mean, when Curry or Thompson, when either one of them gets hot, it gets to the point where they'll just cast off from 30.
Yeah.
And it's when they're really hot, it'll go in, and the place just goes completely nuts. The other team gets demoralized, and it's all okay, But that's not the way the playoffs work. As I say, the defenses tighten up, and there'll be times for the Warriors what they dread is that both of them would go cold, which has been extremely rare.
Yeah, because Curry in Game 2, he was held pretty well.
Yeah, they move the ball around really well when they need to, though, and people talk about them as an outside shooting team, but they get an awful lot of inside looks, inside layups. backdoor cuts, a pick and roll. When they set their mind to it, their ball movement is exceptional.
I love this new coach though, Steve Kerr. I know that Mark Jackson did a great job the last couple of years, but it seems like Kerr has taken them to another level, and he was the runner-up in the Coach of the Year award honors, which were given earlier this week to Mike Budenholzer of Atlanta, who justly deserved that award for doing such a great job in Atlanta. But Kerr is a rookie coach, his first year taking his team to this incredible 67-15 record. I mean, I think the guy deserves a lot of the credit.
Oh, there's no doubt. He's done some things. He never fails to give Mark Jackson the credit for building the foundation, which is absolutely right. I mean, a lot of these are the same players. They did go to the playoffs last year, and they played great defense last year. But the offense is really night and day from Jackson. He was leaned heavily on isolation plays, a lot of one-on-one, dump the ball down low, see what happens. And this team is way more free-flowing, much more people involved in the offense, and Kerr is getting a lot more out of his bench than Jackson did. And I think the other thing he did that's also very crucial is that he hired some terrific assistant coaches that he respects. That I think he feels Alvin Gentry is an even better offensive mind than he is. And after all, Kerr hasn't coached before. And Rod Adams is the defensive guy. And Luke Walton, these guys are tremendous. And Mark Jackson, there was a little bit of insecurity there. His main guys. Lindsey Hunter and Pete Myers, they're not even in the league right now.
Yeah. Bruce Jenkins from the Chronicle is joining us, the San Francisco Chronicle, talking a little NBA hoops. We've been talking about the Warriors. How about this Western Conference, Bruce? You've got the Warriors will match up against the winner of the Memphis-Portland series, which will probably be Memphis. And then they would take on one of four teams, Houston, the winner of Houston-Dallas, or the winner of San Antonio, the Clippers, in the conference finals, if they get that far. It just seems like the path is there for the Warriors to take. It's not that these other teams aren't good. I mean, they're very good. But it just seems like right now the Warriors, everything is going their way. They have good health. They have depth. I just don't see any of these teams, with the exception of maybe the Clippers, Memphis, and San Antonio, giving them much difficulty. How about you?
Yeah, I kind of look at it that way. They finishing first proved to be a real advantage because they did draw number 8, and New Orleans is really just pretty much overmatched here. And I think they got a break in that. The next team they play will be either Portland or Dallas. Portland or Memphis. Portland's really banged up right now. Wesley Matthews is out. Aflalo has been hurt. They've really been crushed by injuries, and I think their spirit's been crushed a little bit. But we'll see how that series turns out. But Memphis has been hurt. They seem to be recovering a little bit, but the Warriors have owned them the last, I think, 3 meetings. It's been a runaway a couple of times. So. That looks like a win also. So it's not until they get to that last, the last stop, which who knows who that's going to be. And I agree with the Spurs and the Clippers. Luma's a real tough opponent once you get there. But, I'd favor the Warriors over everybody, including the East.
Well, okay, hey, Bruce Jenkins, stay with us. We're going to cut to our first commercial break here, and here's the trivia question. The theme is baseball in the 2000s. In 2006, and for the first time in baseball history, this player had a 40-40-40 season by hitting 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, and 40 doubles. Who was this National League player? The first 3 emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com. Excuse me, the answer to this question. In 2006, for the first time in baseball history, this player had a 40-40-40 season. 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, 40 doubles. Who was this National League player? Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Jeez.
Boy, I cannot figure that answer out. Bruce, you have an answer to that one, Bruce?
It's not coming immediately to mind. All those numbers where you throw in, whether it's how many doubles or extra base hits, whatever. I don't know. My mind kind of spins. You asked me about 1962, I'd be a lot more clear.
I know, isn't that funny? Whenever Edward has a question that deals with something, pre-1970 or even 1980, I'm always good. But anything more recent?
Yeah.
I think it's because when we were younger, those important statistics kind of stick in our brains for a lot longer, and they're always going to be there. Jesus, buddy, you do not sound good.
Excuse me.
Jeez, sorry about this. It's a good thing you're not in here, Bruce. I think I'm going to be exposed to pneumonia here from this guy.
I'm at the tail end of this thing. I'm just coughing up a lung, that's all.
Jeez.
Jeez.
God almighty. Got to get out and surf. See, Bruce,
Yeah.
Bruce and I do that a lot. You haven't had a chance to do that much with the lately, huh, Bruce?
Not lately. It's been a little gloomy out here. The wind's been a little contrary. I like to go to Ocean Beach, and I think there's been a couple days I could have gone, or maybe family things came up.
Yeah.
And I'm working a lot.
Yeah, you've been busy with the baseball season starting and the playoffs going on. This is your busy time of year.
I hesitate to go out at Ocean Beach and get work for an hour and a half, and then have to work that night late.
Oh yeah. You'll be trashed by the time that thing is over.
Okay, guys
All
ready?
right, yes.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. If I can last any longer, I'm Edward Brown, your host. Get a little head cold here, along with Bruce McGowan. Here was our first trivia question. In 2006, and for the first time in baseball history, this player had a 40-40-40 season. Hit 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases, and 40 doubles. And no, it wasn't Jose Canseco. Remember, he was the first 40
Yeah, that's right.
Who was this National League player?
Well, I was going to defer to Bruce, but during the break, Bruce was telling me he's in the same boat as me. We're about the same age, and you asked us a question about sports trivia from the 1960s, and we're going to get it off the top of our heads.
Yeah.
But something more recent. Do you have an idea who that might be, Bruce?
I'm really not giving it much thought, to tell you the truth.
Well, let Edward answer it then.
Alfonso Soriano.
Alfonso
Yeah,
Soriano. I never would have gotten that one. Never would have gotten that one. Oh well.
Forget that one.
Yeah.
So we have on the line here Bruce Jenkins, a sports columnist. Bruce, you want to ask him?
Well, I was going to say Bruce has worked for the San Francisco Chronicle now for 42 years, and he's been covering the NBA very closely. And Bruce, before we went to the break, we were talking about the Western Conference and how tough it is up and down, although the Warriors seem to be positioned, not only by virtue of their record, but just the way they're playing and their relative health, to be in a position to perhaps win the conference. You look at the Eastern Conference, though, and it's really, there are not that many good teams outside of Cleveland and perhaps Atlanta. The team that kind of intrigues me, though, are the Chicago Bulls, who have got Jalen Rose back in the lineup. And I know Cleveland is the prohibitive favorite because of Kyrie Irving and LeBron James and Kevin Love. But Chicago is one of those teams that sort of intrigues me.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, had 31 points the other night.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler's a heck of a player. They've always played good defense, but they've got a lot more scoring options now than they've had. And getting Derrick Rose back, it's like making a terrific trade right before the playoffs. His health status has always seemed somewhat fragile, but as long as they have him, they're going to be a force. And Jimmy Butler can score, Mirotic can score, and then Noah doesn't have to do much inside but pass the ball, which he's very good at. And I think they make it a sort of a three-team issue in the East, along with Cleveland and Atlanta.
Atlanta is a team that was playing so well earlier in the year. As a matter of fact, they had the best record in basketball for a while, but they've been beat up. They've had a couple of guys. I guess the one guy broke his leg in some kind of a nightclub incident with some police when he was being arrested. Kind of an unfortunate situation, huh?
Yeah, it's Cephalosha and Antic were out late. The typical NBA guys, they get into New York late at night and they go out even later at night, and a lot of weird things can happen. All the facts are definitely not in. It's being investigated. It sounds as if the police got a little rough with Cephalosha and in fact caused his injury, which is brutal. But we really don't know what happened, except that it's very unfortunate. It puts the organization in negative light. You got two guys out of the picture. It's not great, but they're neither one of those guys is a big time rotation guy. Cephalosha's been hurt most of the year anyway. Their essential rotation is intact, and Budenholzer just got Coach of the Year, and they've looked pretty good. I think the Warriors saw them early on at their peak, and then they beat the Warriors in Atlanta, so you can't take them lightly at all.
If the Knicks were in it, you'd say there was a conspiracy going on with the police. But,
Oh, the Knicks haven't been in. When's the last time the Knicks have really had a good team? It hasn't been that long, but I mean, it's kind of sad to see what has happened to that franchise, Bruce. I mean, it just seems like the ownership there. What's that guy's name? Dolan. He just seems like such a dolt.
Yeah, he is. He's a dolt. He's a vintage dolt, and he's got a lot of money, and he runs the organization and atmosphere of total paranoia as far as everybody's pins and needles. Are you being taped? Are you being videoed? And it's the absolute opposite of what the Warriors have going here. And their talent level is sunk to almost zero outside of Carmelo Anthony being run by Phil Jackson, who is not a young man and isn't very mobile and doesn't get out and around and scout and stuff. And
Well,
our
speaking,
team sure looks overmatched coaching. I mean, they just they've got a long way to go. It's sad. I mean, I like it when the Knicks are good, whether it's Bernard King era or way back to Willis Reed.
Willis Reed, that's what I was thinking, not Wes Unseld. It's Willis Reed.
Yeah, you mentioned Wes Unseld. Wes Unseld I always think of as the quintessential Washington bullet, and now they're called the Wizards. And that's a team that's kind of intriguing also in the East, sort of like maybe Chicago out west, in that they're not picked to win, but they're in a tough series with Toronto as we speak. And of all the matchups, that seems to be the most competitive one there.
Yeah, I think it is. They really fell off during the second half, which was completely frustrated. The players were frustrated. They couldn't win games they should have won. They got sort of written off after a quick start, but now as the playoffs have started, they seem revived. And John Wall's about as entertaining a point guard as you're going to find in either conference. Bradley Beal's a great shooter. It's a good team, and they've had a little revival. So that's I'd like to see them get through and to the second round at least, because I think they're pretty entertaining when they're on.
Now, what about the Spurs? I mean, there are a couple of those guys are a few years away from Social Security, and they seem to always be in there. How long have the main three, been there? Like 10 years?
Been there?
Yeah.
I guess forever.
Yeah, it seems like it.
You know, close to 15 years. I mean, these guys are in their late 30s. You know, Lee Parker and Duncan. They're great winners. At some point, obviously, that has to end. It's a tough series against the Clippers. The Clippers are very physical and have an awful lot of desire, having not really won anything to speak of. So that's going to be that's a really tough test. I think if the Spurs can get through that and have their health, they're going to be really, really tough to deal with.
Now, we just gave a cursory mention to Cleveland, of course, earlier, and that's the team that a lot of people figure are going to win this thing. The Cleveland Cavaliers, because of LeBron James, the best player in the game, and you've got, it seems like they are playing the way they were supposed to play earlier this year. They were playing pretty well, but I mean, right now they seem to have kicked it up a notch. And I'm wondering if the NBA, I know marketing is so important in the NBA, getting the right players involved and the right teams involved. Golden State against Cleveland, those are two, even though Cleveland and San Francisco Bay Area are two larger markets, I don't think the NBA is going to be thrilled if you have those two cities. Although at the same time, LeBron is the biggest name in the game, and Steph Curry right now is probably going to win the MVP. So maybe that would be a great matchup.
I think that would be the ideal matchup. I mean, the cities they would really want are New York, Boston, Philly, and LA, and it's just a joke in every one of them, except for the Clippers. But that's not the Lakers. It's not the same thing. All the teams we followed, all the teams that made the NBA what it was, and made Dream Finals, they're just absolutely horrible now.
Yeah, it's too bad. It really is a shame. And I've been reading your column so often, and find all these little interesting nuggets about not only comparing players to guys who played in the eras past, but you talk about Cleveland and the Warriors, and to me that is, as you mentioned, not only the ideal matchup, but it seems like the most. If these teams stay healthy, Bruce, wouldn't you say that's the best chance of an NBA final? Those two teams.
Yeah, I think that would be the one that most people would favor to happen, and I think it would be the most entertaining, at least going in. I mean, LeBron against Steph Curry, of course, it's much more than that. I mean, Kyrie Irving, some say, handles the ball even fancier than Curry does. Kevin Love is finally seems to finding himself, and the Warriors almost traded for him. So, I mean, there's a lot of great subplots there. That, to me, would be the ideal for sure.
And as far as the Warriors go, back to the Warriors for a minute, the Splash Brothers get a lot of the attention, and rightly so. But the guy that really is always, to me, unappreciated outside of the Bay Area is Draymond Green.
Bogut's coming along.
Well, Bogut is important, but I mean, Draymond Green is kind of the heart and soul of that team, isn't he, Bruce?
There's no question about it. It's going to be interesting to see if he's been recognized enough to get Defensive Player of the Year, which he's right in the running for, and I think should get it. But
DeAndre Jordan's going to get that.
Or he's so much energy. He talks up his team. He kind of trash talks the other guys. Backs up everything he does. Gets the big rebounds. He can guard anyone. He can guard Anthony Davis, or he can guard a 5'10" guy if he has to. And if it's a big three-pointer,
It's a big three-pointer, yeah.
Great Michigan State pedigree. He's just a winner and a tremendous draft pick that's proving to be even better than they dreamed.
I think he's only about 25 years old. He's just a kid, but he seems a lot older in terms of the way he carries himself, even with his his bold kind of behavior. Well, I want to talk to Bruce when we take our next break about some baseball. But before we get out of basketball, Bruce, this has been a fun year for those of us who in Northern California have suffered for so long with so many bad teams with this Warrior team. And I was talking to Warrior radio announcer Tim Roy the other day, and Tim obviously is going to be drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, saying good things about his team. But he was telling me, he says, I've been around this team 20 years now. And he says, I've never seen an organization or a team that feels like it's on the cusp of a great long run. And it just looks to me, and you know better than I do because you cover the NBA a lot more closely, that this might be the best Warrior team of all time, and it may be the start of a great series of teams here in Northern California with the Warriors.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see how they fare, all the way through the playoffs. If they win the championship, I think you can definitely say that it's the best team of all time. I'm sure Rick Barry would have something to say about that, and rightly so. But they've just got so much going for them. I mean, Rick Welch, the president, is a very forward-thinking guy who's been respected in the NBA for decades. Bob Myers, the general manager, has assembled a team full of team guys. There's no knuckleheads, no selfish guys. Everybody's in it for the right reasons. It's a really beautifully constructed roster. They've got two superstars in Thompson and Curry, and then they've got all these other guys. I mean, the key to the longevity of it will be replacing Bogut, which I'm sure is going to be sooner than later. He's not a young guy, and his body's been through a lot, but it'd be nice if they get a couple more years out of him and see how much they can do with the current guys they have.
Very good. Okay, Bruce Jenkins, stay with us. We're going to cut to our second commercial break. Trivia question is in baseball in the 2000s. To close out the 2000s decade, in 2009, Ichiro Suzuki of the Mariners completed his 9th consecutive 200-hit season of the majors. Whose record of 8 seasons did Ichiro break? All right. The first 3 emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question. To close out the 2000s decade, in 2009, Ichiro Suzuki of the Mariners completed his 9th consecutive 200-hit season in the majors. Whose record of 8 seasons did Ichiro break? Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
That'd be Rod Carew. I wonder if it's Rod Carew. What do you think, Bruce?
I think it might be Willie Keeler.
Willie Keeler. Yeah, I think you're right. That's a good one. Willie Keeler. That's going way back to right around the turn of the century, isn't it?
19th century. I'm right
19th
there.
century. Yeah, there you go. You know your 19th century baseball history. Good almighty. Well, let's talk a little baseball when we get back here. We'll get into a little MLB here. We got one more segment?
Yeah. It's the last one.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for doing this, Bruce. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Always enjoy hearing you on the weekends when I'm driving to the game with Marty. That's always fun. You guys really, it's kind of sad that there's only one guy in the Bay Area who really likes to talk baseball on the local radio, and that's Marty Lurie. It's there's nobody else who really, Tom does a decent job, but I mean he's more of a basketball guy, and it just seems like the other guys are talking NFL more often.
Baseball all day long. Okay, guys ready?
Yeah.
There we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Graham, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. When we cut to the second commercial break, we ask this hard trivia question. To close out the 2000s decade, in 2009, Ichiro Suzuki of the Mariners completed his 9th consecutive 200-hit season in the majors. Whose record of 8 seasons did Ichiro break? Now, Bruce, who'd you
Well, I said Rod Carew, but Bruce had a more intriguing answer, and I think he may be right on. Go ahead, Bruce.
I think it's Willie Keeler, the old hit 'em where they ain't guy from the early 1900s.
You are correct. Willie Keeler.
Very good.
That'd be, I think, the late 1800s.
Yeah, he used to choke up on the bat and just kind of poke and peck at the ball. And
Hit 'em where they ain't.
During the dead ball era, yeah. When they did, I guess the guys who led the league in home runs hit about 12. I think Home Run Baker, his name was Home Run Baker, he had 12 home runs.
Home Run Baker, yeah. So let's move on to a little baseball here.
Yeah, Bruce Jenkins from the San Francisco Chronicle joining us. And Bruce, of course, was a beat writer for many years covering the Oakland A's and has covered the San Francisco Giants in the national scene. And Bruce, one of the great stories in the early season, at least, has been the ascendancy, and who knows how long it'll last, of the New York Mets, who are led by one of the most exciting young pitchers in the game, and Matt Harvey. Are the Mets for real, and can they make a run this year?
I'm not sure. The way that division is shaping up, Washington's had some problems. They don't look nearly as good as they were supposed to be. Atlanta's kind of down. Phillies down. I think they can definitely stay in the race. And whether they're a powerhouse, I'm short on that as far as the hitting goes. But Harvey is a tremendous pitcher. He's back and throwing. Looks like he hasn't missed a beat after the arm surgery. And the kid DeGrom is a good pitcher. It's a shame that Zach Wheeler, the former Giants prospect, he's on the shelf now. But they've got a lot going for them, and it's been pretty refreshing.
Yeah, one of the guys also that's come up and just really energized the city of Chicago is this young third baseman, Chris Bryant. In his first game, he struck out 3 times and went 0 for 4. And then the other night, he comes out and gets a double, which turned into a home run because it was misplayed. Had a couple singles, drove in 3 runs. And it sounds like this young guy is going to be just a heck of a player.
Yeah, I mean, there was really too much hype around him because the Cubs sent him down to the minor leagues for 12 days. Protect his service time. It gives him an extra year before he comes up for free agency. It's like 2021 instead of 2020, which makes a difference if you're looking down the line. And there was like, where is he? We can't wait till he's here. And when he showed up, there was all this fanfare. I felt bad for him. And he goes up against James Shields. Strikes out 3 times, but he's a good hitter. He proved that pretty quickly right after that. A lot of power. The Cubs are really an interesting team to watch. He's just one of 4 or 5 guys that are considered among the best prospects in the game, and I think that could be great for baseball if they stay in the race.
Well, go
I'm
ahead.
just going to make one comment. It's like, what did Willie Mays start off his career with? Like 1 for 19?
Something like that. They hit a ball over the roof at the Polo Grounds. Well, you mentioned James Shields of San Diego, and San Diego really went out and was very aggressive. They've been sort of a team that you don't hear too much about in recent years because they've just let players go. Guys like Adrian Gonzalez and other players that, there were very few people like Tony Gwynn that wanted to hang around. But now they go out and they get, Kemp and Upton and bring in this guy Kimbrel to be their closer. I mean, that's a team that to me seems to be very capable of making it to the playoffs this year, if not winning a wild card, maybe even challenging the Dodgers in the West.
Yeah, there's no doubt from what we've seen so far. I mean, the new general manager down there, A.J. Preller, has just been a madman. He's a young guy who wants that team to win right now. He's brought in a bunch of guys who are capable of doing it, giving up quite a bit for the future, and maybe not the smartest financial moves, but who cares if you're in San Diego? You're looking at Matt Kemp and Craig Kimbrel, Justin Upton and Will Myers and Shields. I mean, they just instantly transformed that team into a very watchable, contending-looking team. So. Absolutely. I think, as the season goes on, I think the Giants will probably regret that they couldn't lock up Shields when they were talking to him.
Well, I guess he wanted to stay closer to his home, didn't he? Was that the reason, I think? Because I believe his family's from Southern California. He wanted to be a little closer to home.
What happened was they were in on him early, and they offered a contract that wound up being pretty much what he signed for. And it was early on, and he said, well, I want to see what else is out there, and the Giants kind of needed to know because they're looking at Peavy and Vogelsong and how they're going to move on with their own rotation. And with a little bit of doubt there, they pulled the trigger on those guys and let Shields get away. And unfortunately, he wound up signing for pretty much what the Giants offered. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Did he make the right move? Maybe San Diego's a better idea than the Giants this year. Who knows?
Well, it is an odd year, so the Giants don't have a chance. Right? They only win in even years.
That's true. The Giants have had such a strange, you can call them a dynasty, Bruce, but I mean, they've really done it with a cast of different characters with the exception of a few pitchers, Lincecum, Kane, Bumgarner, and so on. But boy, what a disappointment they've been. And yet at the same time, you look at their roster, and it really isn't surprising that they've been struggling.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hunter Pence's injury was really quite a blow because he's such an emotional leader and on the field and in every way. And the rotation, when Kane goes down and Peavy and pitching is so the essence of that team that it's certainly not a surprise that they got off to kind of a slow start here. But to me, it's all about the Dodgers, and if they're the one team that could run away with the West. But if they don't, it could be 5 teams. I mean, all the teams look like they could be bunched up for quite a while. That would work to the Giants' favor.
Interesting story out of the Midwest that Brian Price, the young manager with the Reds, who's as we're taping this show here in Marin County, which is just north of San Francisco, and Brian is a Marin County native, but he earned a dubious distinction the other night when he went off on a wild expletive-filled tangent for like 6 minutes. I guess what was going on there, Bruce? I think his backup catcher or one of his players didn't show up, and somebody was asking what happened, and he just blew up. I don't know the details behind it, but I heard some of it, and it was almost hysterical. It was like Tommy Lasorda relived, when Tommy used to go off in his little, tangents and use a lot of F-bombs and S-bombs.
Well, it was just, it wasn't so much one specific incident triggered it, but he's just really, he can't believe that beat writers are talking about, well, this lefty reliever is not going to be available tonight, for reasons that he discovered. It's like, what? You would admit that? Now the other team knows it. What's wrong with you? I mean, he's got this crazy idea in his head that the beat writers should be like paid employees who would never write anything negative about the team. It's just factual. It's factual stuff.
I guess he's waiting till after the game, then go ahead and report that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though, because I mean, in a sort of a strange way, here's a guy who just goes off on this tangent, and I know that the tape of Brian Price, losing his brain practically, is going to be circulated around the internet, and we're going to hear about this for a long time.
77 F-bombs.
Yeah, 77 F-bombs, Bruce. I mean, you think after about a minute he'd realize what he was saying, but he just went off on it, and it didn't stop.
Oh, it's really damning. It hurts his cause immeasurably. And like you say, it's like the classic Tommy Lasorda, Frank Lucchese, whatever, Bruce Scott. You know them all, Bruce. You're the king of audio. But this is definitely right in there.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking National League. How about the American League now? And the team has gotten off to a great start in the Central Division, the Detroit Tigers, who have just been unbeatable in the early campaign. Plus, Kansas City is having a great start to their season. Two teams that might be the teams to watch in the American League.
I'm really enjoying Detroit. I'm a big fan of Yoenis Cespedes from his days in the A. He's an incredible athlete. He's been doing some great things for Detroit. He and Miguel Cabrera, what a show. Victor Martinez, they've got a tremendous lineup. Pitching a little bit down from last year, but they're obviously really right there. And Kansas City, they had that wild series with Oakland. They're coming back, making everybody realize that they're tending to win another, get back to the World Series. And some of the stuff they did in that A's series was pretty dubious, I thought. But they certainly are feisty and energetic and getting after it, and they're certainly not passive. So, and that's the way they play the game. They steal and they bunt and they run and they drive you crazy.
Yeah, Bruce was alluding to an incident over the weekend. Actually, a couple of incidents where Kansas City and the Oakland A's went out on the field. There were several, not brawls, but situations where people were threatening each other. The Kansas City took issue, I guess, with a hard slide that Brett Laurie made and threw a couple of pitches at Laurie in consecutive games. And it's livened up the rivalry, and it's made it a lot more interesting. Another interesting story, though, to me, is Alex Rodriguez, who's off to a great start. And this guy was somebody I think a lot of people wanted him to go away and never come back. You can't deny this guy has the talent. And at his age, he's 40 years old, but he's about to pass Willie Mays, the iconic Willie Mays, for fourth in the all-time home run list. And Bruce, even though I know the guy did performance-enhancing drugs, the numbers he has put up, it's going to be very difficult to overlook this guy when his career is done, as far as saying no to him when it comes to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, well, I feel the same way about him as I do about Bonds, who I've voted for full conviction every time he's on the ballot and always will. Just a great hitter, period. I mean, a lot of guys got into the juice, and that was an unfortunate era that the game had to go through. That's just the way it was. But you can't deny an athlete of that caliber. Sure enough, here he is. I mean, the Yankees were among those who wanted him to go away.
Yeah, they were willing to take the hit, I guess, on their salary. They were paying him something like $20 million, and they were just hoping he'd walk away and they could just pay him off. But actually, he may prove to be a savior for this team.
He's about the only reason to watch the Yankees right now. I mean, if they're on, I'm watching his at bats. He's raking.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see the comparison? I think it was on Baseball Tonight between Miguel Cabrera and Hank Aaron. They were looking at the numbers side by side. It was amazing how close they were. I know. He's still fairly young. How long has Cabrera been playing now?
He's been around at least 10 years. He started out in Florida. He's not a young guy by any means. But I'll tell you, there's a guy. Bruce. For those of us who grew up with Willie Mays and Aaron and Clemente and those guys, Mickey Mantle, we always tend to think of them as the best. And I always have thought that. But every now and then somebody comes along. Felt Bonds was that way, and Miguel Cabrera is about as good a hitter as I've ever seen. Power, the average, hitting the ball up the middle, the opposite way. I mean, he is absolutely everything that's a great hitter.
I mean, to get a triple crown,
Yeah.
that's something.
One time, I was lucky enough to actually meet and interview Ernie Banks late in his career. It's kind of sad that Ernie died suddenly in the off season. He didn't suffer. I think he had a heart attack and died. He was 84 years of age, and such an optimistic and positive spirit, and a genuinely nice guy. Bruce, I'm sure you've talked to him over the years at meeting him at old timers games, but that rare kind of quality, not only on the field but off the field, made him somebody that was just so beloved in Chicago. I know that the fans back there really miss that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was genuinely upbeat every day he ever went to the ballpark, as far as anybody in Chicago. Oh, I mean, it certainly wasn't an act. It became kind of a cliche, let's play too. But that's really how he felt. He wanted to get out there and play all day, every day, loved the game, loved everything about it. And he came into the game at a very tough time for blacks in baseball, when there was a lot of segregation, a lot of nasty things happen on the road. Can't eat at a restaurant, can't do this, can't do that. And guys like Banks and Frank Robinson and Aaron and Mays, went through that, and then they came up in the 50s and early 60s. But he had an outlook on life that nothing was going to beat him down. He was going to play Major League Baseball. He felt like the luckiest guy in the world. And when you look back on his early career and some of the hitting that he did, and realizing he was a darn good shortstop, he's right there in the argument for if you're starting a team all time, who's your shortstop? I'd sure take him in the late 50s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
the great Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks.
In fact, we just lost another friend to Sports Econ 101, Bob St. Clair.
Oh, yeah, Bob St. Clair from the NFL, from the 49ers. Yeah. Hall of Famer.
All right, here's our final trivia question. Baseball in the 2000s. Pitcher Eric Gagne of the Dodgers set a major league record when he threw 55 consecutive saves in 2003. Whose record did Gagne break? All right. The first three emails with the correct answer win a free 3-day 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Email edward@sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question. Pitcher Eric Gagne.
I think it's actually Gagne.
Gagne?
Well, Bruce, how is it pronounced? Anyway, I always mispronounce.
Gagne. Let's say Gagne. Okay, the Dodgers.
French-Canadian, isn't he? I believe so.
How about just Eric? Eric of the Dodgers set a major league record when he threw 55 consecutive saves in 2003. Whose record did he break? Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll come back with some closing comments. Okay.
Well, I remember Eric Thigpen set the record for not consecutive saves, for a number of saves. He held that for a while, didn't he, Bruce? Wasn't it Eric Thigpen from the Bobby Thigpen? For the White Sox. But I'm not sure about consecutive saves. I
remember this happening and being kind of disgusted, learning whose record it was. I think it's Jose Mesa.
Oh, that's right.
Had a real up and down career, to say the least.
You remember when he was playing with the Giants? You ever talk to that guy, by the way, when he was with the Giants?
Yeah, he's a strange cat.
Yeah, I remember he and Julian Tavares were on the same Giant team that year, and those two guys used to be buddies, and they'd sit around. Of course, they played together in Cleveland, and they'd sit around in the back of the plane. And I remember going back there once, and they had all these little bottles of different booze, and they were trying them all out. And it was so funny. I was going to the bathroom, and Mason gives me this look, and he goes, "Hey, you want to sit down and try some of this booze with us?" Like, what in the world are these guys doing, man? I mean, Julian Tavares was a strange dude.
Yeah.
He said
that's one of the strangest.
Yeah.
Easily one of the strangest.
Well, you remember when they sent him down for a rehab start? I guess he was rehabbing an injury, and somebody asked him, "What are you going to do when you're down there?" And he goes, "I'm going to eat and fart all day." And Brian Sabian said, "This guy's out of here. I don't want him around anymore."
Yeah, I would have had him out of there a lot earlier than that.
Yeah.
But he was durable. He could throw 67 times a season, though. That's one thing about Julian.
Yeah.
Never got hurt.
Yeah.
So we just have 2 quick minutes. So what we'll do is we'll answer the trivia question. We'll thank our guest, and we'll send you on your way. Okay, Bruce?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks again, Bruce. Really appreciate this.
Especially with me with my...
How's Martha doing, by the way?
Good. Just came in the door. She's doing great. I got to get out to the yard. I'm heading out to the Giants game.
Oh, good.
Okay.
That should be
All right,
fun.
so let's let you go.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Third and final trivia question was, pitcher Eric, we just call him Eric
Gagne,
of the Dodgers, set a major league record when he threw 55 consecutive saves in 2003. Whose record did he break?
You got that one, Bruce?
I don't know if it was Trevor Hoffman or John Smoltz or Jose Mesa. I think maybe one of those guys. I don't know.
No, it was Tom Gordon.
Tom Flash Gordon?
Yeah, Tom Flash Gordon of the Red Sox. So we've had on the phone here Bruce Jenkins, sports columnist. Thank you very much, Bruce, for joining us this whole time.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Okay.
All right. Good guy. And as we mentioned, Bruce has been with the San Francisco Chronicle, which is the largest paper in Northern California. He's been a regular columnist for them, covering mostly the NBA and Major League Baseball, though Bruce does a lot of tennis, for 43 years.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's a lot. 43 years.
43 years, yeah.
You could write a lot of stories on that.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. The only way to overcome is to hang in. Even I'm starting to believe that, said Dan O'Brien.
Oh, yeah.
And excuse me, so let's see here. You learn you can do your best even when it's hard, even when you're tired, and maybe hurting a little bit.
I think you should get some saltwater
Yeah,
gargle.
I know. I got to do that. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It feels good to show some courage from a man who had a lot of hurt, Joe Namath.
Oh, boy. Did he ever.
That sounds
If Joe Namath was healthy, I think, he's always been sort of a cult figure, and he was a great quarterback, but his numbers were not that spectacular. But he took his team to a championship, and if he had stayed healthy, I think there'd be a lot more legitimacy to his being, considered one of the great quarterbacks of all time. Because his numbers really weren't that good, but he had that one iconic year when they took the Jets to the Super Bowl, and that was important.
Yeah, but there were 5 turnovers, I think, in that Super Bowl.
The thing that won that Super Bowl for the Jets was their defense. Their defense was outstanding. I mean, the Colts scored their only touchdown late in the game, so that was the story of the game.
Great. Bruce McGowan, thank you for joining me.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. We'll do it next week.
Yeah, you betcha. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective, giving away more free vacations for answering sports trivia questions. By then, I will get my voice back. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.